Archetype tier list, yay! I got this from Lord Jamcroft. Shout out to Lord Jamcroft. He has a video about character archetypes as well, recommending what you should pick, like what tends to be good in each fighting game. So I decided to put my own spin on this and talk about how good I think they are just overall in fighting games. This is the strength of archetypes. This is usually the second thing I recommend to people when they are trying to pick a character in a game and they don't really like any character aesthetically, but they really want to try the game anyway. Usually I'm like a character you think is cool, character you want to hug, character you think is cute, whatever. So we got some character archetypes here represented by a character. As we've been discussing on stream while I've been trying to get this to work, usually characters are combinations of these things, and there are sub-archetypes of these things that I'm kind of generally just shoving into one so that we don't have like 30 or 40 archetypes here. So what do we have? These are, we'll go from left to right here. So we have Axel representing the normal zoners, as in controlling space with very large normals. Zato 1 representing the puppet characters. So this includes both characters that you require negative edge to control the character. Characters like Zato and Carl Clover, like characters like that. And characters who the other thing they're working with are controlled by commands or buttons. So characters like Relius Clover or Amada Ken from Ultimax, characters like that. Android 21, this is a composite character. So if you don't know what that is a character that either takes moves from the opponent or just has moves that other characters have. And when I say moves that other characters have, I mean like the actual move, not like, oh, like Ryu has a fireball and Ken has a fireball, like kind of like double from Skullgirls type thing. Another example of a character like this is Seth from Street Fighter 4. Kirby from Smash is also a character like this as well. Gran is out here representing the Rushdown mid dispenser. So if you don't know what a mid dispenser is, it is a character that attacks you not with highs, not with lows, but with mids. And they do a bunch of these in your face, and sometimes they try to throw you. Usually getting hit is way worse than throwing. And there's a lot of interaction on both sides in this offensive sequence. Then we have Ryu representing the Shotos. This is usually the main character of the game, usually with a fireball, an invincible reversal, good mid-range, and is able to play in the system well in general. Usually the assumption is that the Shoto character is the first character that gets made in a new fighting game. Then you representing the Setplay / Vortex characters, depending on what side of the aisle you're from. This is Milia Rage. So these are the characters that knock you down, and they're able to mix you up and repeat the situation. Generally uninteractable or good at dealing with the game's defensive options and able to continue to push their turn. If you need more examples, characters like Street Fighter 4, Ibuki, Gotenks from DBFZ, all fall into this. Then representing projectile zoners, trap characters, and everything in between is Morgan, UMVC 3 Morgan. So just generally controlling space with projectiles and making it very hard for you to approach. A very defensive style of play, and honestly kind of an unpopular one. People don't like playing against this very much. Then representing the system mechanic characters, it is Elizabeth. So some games have very unique mechanics that are very important to the game, and sometimes they make characters that are specifically made to use this mechanic. So that is what Elizabeth is representing here in her game Persona, especially in the original Persona 4 Arena. She was one of the characters that used the Persona mechanic the most, and it's very important for her playstyle in like every phase of the game. Then representing slow grapplers, we have to have the first one, which is Zangief. So this is a guy with pokes and throws, command grabs, and they are slow. 3 very simple things. Then representing fast grapplers, we have Shermie from KOF. So she has normals and she has command grabs, but she is fast. She's very fast. So I mean that's really it. That's the difference between these two. But what these two types of characters are, how they function, end up being very different because of their speed. Then representing item throw characters, we have Faust. So item throw characters are, I mean, it's in the name. They throw items, and usually the items, some characters, they're random. Sometimes it's in order, but the items do different things that quite literally change the game while they're out. generally advantageous for the person playing the item throw character. Sometimes you're able to interact with them, sometimes you're not able to. Just depends on the game. Then we have the one chance character. So you might be like, what's the difference between, we have Makoto representing this here. So what's the difference between this character and these two characters, right? Especially you might look like at Makoto and be like, she's a grappler. So the reason why I have Makoto here as the one chance character is that this character can kill you off a single interaction under certain conditions, where these types, we wouldn't usually define it as that. For Guilty Gear Strive players, you will see that Nagoro Yuki is quite literally defined as a one-shot character, as in one interaction and you may be able to die. I also include Gold Lewis in this group as well. Usually characters like this, either they kill you in like one fucking combo, like they get like their one mix-up opportunity, if they get it, you die. Or the sequence is so overwhelming that if they catch you, it's over. Then we have the fast ninja type characters. So these characters are usually the straight up fastest characters in the game. Yosuke from Persona 4 Arena will be representing the fast ninja characters. These characters are absurdly fast, very hard to see their movement. Usually, I want to say not only are they just fast, but the way they usually have unique movement options as well, making them very, very, very tricky to catch. You also have Bang Shishigami, Chip Zanoff, characters like that are all kind of fall in this group. Then we have the mix-up characters. So you might be like, well, Milia and the Setplay characters are mix-up characters, but the main difference between these two is that one does it from a position of extreme advantage, and one does it generally from offense. These two are different things. So I have him in a different group here compared to these lab experiments over here. And last, down here, we have the joke characters. This is like your serve bot. Dan, Neko Arc was the first one I encountered. So these characters are usually added in as jokes. Sometimes they have like unique stuff, but they're usually considered like the joke character. They're not like important to the plot of the game or like anything like that. So as usual, let us make the list. I mean, boop. Zangief looks ferocious. You said that the right way. I will say this is mildly ordered, by the way. Mildly ordered. Oh, switcheroonie. Damn, Charmy a cutie. I need to play KOF. Just so I can make a fucking waifu team and meme and be fucking terrible at the game. Okay. If there's any like extra I'd add, maybe I'd add like a parry character, like, you know, but it's fine. This is a pretty good spread. All right, so let's start from the bottom. And then go up. Pretty good spread. So I'm gonna start with the joke characters. So in almost all cases that of my experience, I mean, the joke characters are a joke. So, you know, usually they have their own unique mechanics, but they're not made usually to be like good characters. They're usually like missing a bunch of stuff. The only character that I really know who's a joke character that's like good is like SF5 Dan. I played against Necroarch in like Actress Again and Akadenza, and like Necroarch has a pretty like one really annoying, I mean it should be two, right? Hard to combo, and then like the thing that like reverses the inputs, right? Reverses your inputs. Besides that though, it's just usually they're made bad on purpose. Like they have moves that are like really small, they not really good at controlling space, sometimes they're not mobile. They're just missing stuff on purpose. Like think about Servbot too, for example, right? Little Servbot. Like these characters are like not made necessarily to be good. I think they are kind of just chilling in their own spot here. Also in their own spot, grapplers, right? The slow grappler. So it usually comes from the point that so they have like really strong mix-up, and usually not always, they have like good system mechanic things like a lot of health, builds a lot of meter, stuff like that. But usually just the mobility, since they're so slow, they're usually missing mobility options, which makes them really linear to fight against. Most of the time they have moves that that kind of advance and help them deal with projectiles, but even then, like, it's still something they have to commit to. So it's generally a struggle for them. There are examples of this type of character being extremely strong. I mean, Zangief is one. I think released Street Fighter 4 Zangief was like supposed to be very, 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 very strong. But for the most part, generally the archetype is considered pretty weak overall. We go to B. So we have like the Rushdown mix-up characters. So these characters, I mean, the mix is usually really strong, but usually the main issue is that you can interact with them. That is the main defining thing. Often you can interact with them. So even though it's hard to deal with on defense, you can usually like at least try to counterattack or add some things where they have to like overextend in order to catch you. Also, generally, these characters don't do that much damage. Of course, like Fuerte has like an infinite. We have Fuerte as example. The infinite's kind of hard to do. I mean, kind of hard is an understatement. And I believe that infinite is quite difficult to do. So his damage output is not like super great. He has to like, you know, continuously hit you with mix-ups from either like mid-range or from block buttons, which is it's just not a very consistent way of winning. Similarly, so the characters that these system mechanic characters, so usually their issue is that they're too reliant on this mechanic, and that is always their flaw, right? So if you have like Elizabeth's case, so I have like Elizabeth and Margaret both like this, but I felt like Margaret like compensates for all Elizabeth's weaknesses. So like in Elizabeth's case, you have to use the persona, and then if the persona gets broken, she's screwed. Like she really, like her normals are not that great. She's not fast. She's able to like float in the air, kinda. She's able to stall in the air with like jump B and stuff. But she's not very mobile, so she has to use the persona. If you kill that persona, she is really, really screwed, and she doesn't have a lot of life on top of that. Where Margaret is like she's hyper mobile. She has normal life, more persona cards. So like she's like more stable, but usually like if they're too reliant on the mechanic, that's usually their problem. And I think it's just pretty consistent, you know. That point. There are other characters in Persona who have this problem. Like Yukiko had this problem for years, for example, being too reliant on her persona and then having flaws on top of that. Where if you talk about people who zone with normals, usually their issue is that they are committing, and sometimes even though the normal looks like you just can't do anything about it, either it's like it usually has something weird system wise, like, oh, if you block it, it's like double digit minus, so you can punish it from full screen, or oh, it has an extended hurt box, so if you jab over here, you go like this, and then they like just get hit from full screen. So like there's always ways of like kind of mitigating them using their normals. Also, their characters are fast as fuck and they can just get in, like, because a lot of these characters have moves where yes, they control a lot of space, but they are the one who's doing it with their normal. And if a fast character maneuvers around it, they're done. They're just done. The good news for this character is, like, I feel like the character that zones with normals is the beginning of characters that can like deal with a lot of stuff. Like, I actually feel like the other three, even though there's good examples of all of them, they generally just like have a lot of problems. Where like there's definite good things about zoning with normals. Like you control a lot of space. It can be really annoying. Usually these characters, unlike most projectile zoners, they have some buttons where you stick out something that takes a long time, but then they have other buttons that are pretty big too that they don't stick out for a long time, just go boop, but it controls like a ton of space. And then now we're starting to get to the good stuff, the juice. So first, the very fast character. So the good news is these characters are usually the fastest in the game. Mobility is king. Like, just being able to be hard to hit is a really, really big deal. Usually, for whatever fucking reason, they always give these characters reversals. So not only are they hard to catch, but they have reversals. The bad side is they usually have no life. Like, they have really poor like defense. Like, if you hit them once, they're dead type thing. But they're like, oh well, you know, they die, so let's give them something to protect themselves. So Yosuke has that broken ass counter. I shouldn't say it's broken anymore. It used to be. It used to be. It's fine now. Or, you know, Chip has a DP also, for example. Another really good thing about playing this type of character is that even if they're not the best, they can always deal with a lot of stuff. So when you look at all the archetypes that are here, like the fastest characters can deal with the knockdown characters, the projectile zoners, the item throw, puppet. They can deal with all these things because they're so fast they can get to you. Where usually like these characters are trying to do things where it's like, oh, once I get started, you can't do anything about it. the very fast character doesn't let you get started in the first place. So generally their only issue is they die really fast, and usually they don't do a lot of damage. Yes, or Yosuke's old counter was broken as fuck. It was I don't want to say it was impossible to safe jump, but it was incredibly difficult to safe jump with normals. You basically had to safe jump with a persona. So his defense was just really good. He was able to match, and he had backdash, and he has counter. I always thought his counter was one of the best reversals in the game, beautiful reversals in the game. Then you have the one chance characters. So I think if I was talking about like the Japanese format, like first to one, single elim, I might put this as S tier, because you quite literally have to get them one time and you win. But I think in the scope of everything, here's probably fine. Like these characters are incredibly stressful to play against, and you need really good counterplay for these characters, or else they are truly going to maul you. There's not a lot of room for error also. And if you play a character that takes like high execution or something, and you mess up and you die instantly for it, like it's pretty rough. The good news is, for the most part, of course, there's top tier examples of basically every single one of these archetypes, but for the most part, you are able to mitigate this playstyle by like beating the character in neutral and just preventing them from getting started in the first place. Then you have composite characters. So there's not a lot of these. The thing that I always thought, and of course Android 21 is an example of, Android 21 and Seth are both examples of top tier ones. I felt like in Seth's case, it's just that he has like every good thing. So he's got like the good DP, he's got a command grab for mix, but then he also has mix straight up. But then he has good zoning because he has sonic boom. So his case is that he just has good everything, and then like the main problem with him is like his HP sucks. Where 21, so she's a good character, and there was some like a couple of seasons, like season 3 was a good example of this, where all the characters that people were playing would give her the best shit, because she takes different moves depending on like, there's like 4 different groups of characters, and there's 4 different pairs of moves she can take from the opponent's character. So there's some where it's like whatever, but one of the best steals is like the yellow steal and the purple steal. The yellow steal is characters like SSJ Vegeta, Gotenks, Base Vegeta all give you this, and those characters, when those characters are really common, she gets really good stuff of it. Like she gets an unblockable, basically like a near unblockable setup. Really good air, like really good. She gets all this really good stuff off of it. So it is pretty strong. Usually though, I feel like these characters usually, like in 21's case, the main thing is like when she's not at her absolute best, you're really counting on what character your opponent's playing, which you don't really have any control over. I felt like that's why they gave her the change of when you level 3 somebody, you take all their steals, so that you just have opportunity to like use your steals. Then you have fast grapplers. So fast grapplers are a fucking nightmare. So it's all the things you don't like about slow grapplers, but they're fast and they can get to you, which really sucks. And then also usually they are not as big as slow grapplers. So usually they're not as big as slow grapplers too, so they're harder to hit as well, and they have that same really strong strike throw. Really the main thing keeping them down is that in the end they're still grapplers, so they still kind of have to like work their way in. They're just way better at doing it than slow grapplers. Then you got the most normal of guys. So we have Ryu representing the Shotos, and these characters overall, I think they're just a really safe bet, because you have a little bit of everything. They give you a pretty good version of everything. They're easy to play, and they work in the system really well. So you really can't miss with them. Like usually I struggle to find examples of them being straight up bad, unless like you could kind of tell the game was like trying to make them bad. I'm sure someone's going to be like, what about Launch Kyle, for example, right? Launch Kyle is like that because of Beta Kyle, right? In the Guilty Gear Strive Beta, he was pretty OD. Hard knockdown of Stun Dipper instead of Soft knockdown. I believe frame rate was better. He had a bunch of he had so much stuff that they took away in the release game. Then we have the mid dispenser. So this character I kind of use, there's a lot of like sub archetypes that fit under mid dispenser. Mid dispenser is really nice because it covers a lot of stuff. So for example, by talking about mid dispenser, you can talk about a record character, right? Most record characters They have follow-ups on moves. They use the follow-ups on moves for pressure. Sometimes they give them high-low, but not often. Or another one is like stance characters. All right, so let's talk about stance characters. For example, Johnny. Johnny, stance character. Does he have stance? Yes. Does he use a stance? Yes. He levels up with it? Yes. But essentially, what he does is he has a bunch of mids that are really scary. As he levels up, his mids get scarier. He uses a stance to make his mids scarier. And then he strike throws you. If he throws you, he gets a combo into knockdown, into mix, or unblock. Like, this is, and Projectile Zoner also is just a vague example of, a general example, not vague, general example of, like, grouping together sub-archetypes into, like, just one general archetype, just for the sake of time. This is an extremely reliable archetype, though. People bitch about mid dispensers a lot, because in modern day context, a lot of modern fighting games that I've played have like, oh, all these normals are minus, but like a character like a projectile zoner or like a normal zoner, they'll have like a bunch of minus stuff, right? And then the mid dispenser, they'll give the mid dispenser one move that's plus, and people will lose their mind. One move that's plus, so they could do like strike throw, no command grab, by the way, and then people will lose their mind. It's a pretty stressful archetype to play against. They usually are like, well, with this type of character, and this is something I'm gonna revisit for a later talk, but they're usually like, well, since all they're doing is strike throw, it's fair. What they're doing is fair. It's fine. So we'll give them stuff. We'll give them a bunch of stuff. That's always how I feel like the reasoning is, and it's always why I feel like it's pretty reliable that this type of character is going to be pretty good. Also, they're usually pretty easily, and they get figured out really fast. For Stride people, for example, like Soul, honestly, I mean, of course he had some juice with BRC and things like that, but in the end, my man's a mid dispenser. Dispenses mids. Grand tier, release Grand, mid dispenser. Usually what happens to these characters is usually two things. One, they get fucking nerfed because everyone complains about them. Two is that people realize, because the characters are usually not like super technical, so people are able to build out what the character can do and make it really hard for the attacking player to do what they want to do effectively. These characters are really, really good when games come out because people don't know how to deal with their stuff, but as the meta develops, they usually, if they don't get toned down by the developers, people also figure out like, okay, this is how you deal with this. And then we go with the greatest of all times. These are, and maybe one of them will be spicy. Okay, I think if you play fighting games for a long time, we can agree that these are probably the 4 overall most winning type of characters overall. These 4 type of characters: puppet characters, item throw characters, projectile zoners, and set play, knockdown. And when I say set play, because y'all in the chat were talking about neutral set play, which to me, I was like, there's no such thing. Like, there's no such thing, because set play is your plan for attacking the opponent when they wake up. So you can't do that from neutral because you're supposed to do it when you knock them down. Anyway, so let's start with puppet characters. So puppet characters are characters that are able to control another entity and attack with that entity. So usually they have a bunch of flaws, but the upside is they're able to do like sequences and stuff that other characters can't do and have an advantage that other characters can't. This is incredibly strong in fighting games, because usually like they have like HP weakness, like defense weakness, but then like they give them really unique moves, like how Zato can reflect projectiles, go underground. He used to have Shadow Gallery, so he used to be able to go from the sky and teleport to the ground and come out to like anti-air you. Or how Carl could armor with the doll and stuff. They usually have all these special things they can do that other characters can't do, and they have good mix-up on top of that, because if it's not the second character they're controlling has like a high low, so they can set up for unblockables, then at least they have enough advantage that they can set up high low 50/50s that are very hard to deal with. That usually can loop as well. So the other nice thing about having another character fight with you is that you can attack from safe ranges. So they get to do what characters that zone with normals want to do in a really safe way. Because one of the things that I always think is a weakness for characters that zone with normals, generally, not always, generally, is that either they usually have to commit really hard, or their good normal has like some hitbox weakness or something. But if you're using a second character like a puppet or something, you're not going to have this weakness, right? You're just not going to have this weakness. So, for example, Zato has Frog, and Axel has 2S, right? So 2S is amazing, but they have to be in that spot. Where Zato, he can use Frog in that same general spot and cover really far ahead of that. And if someone's just sitting there, catch someone who's on the ground too, all with just one move. So it just means that they're really strong in beyond incredibly strong in a couple of positions in the game. Neutral. I generally have a theory that there's 4 phases of fighting game: neutral, offense, block, string, defense, and knockdown. So they tend to be amazing in neutral, amazing offense, not the best defense, but then amazing knockdown. So they're just like amazing at 3 out of the 4, like so good at 3 out of the 4 parts of the game that the one part where they're bad, like it doesn't matter that much in some games. And usually the reason why they're not absolutely top tier is just because like it's easy to deal with the other character, the second character that they control. Then you have item throw characters. So this shit is so, this shit went under the radar for so long, but is so good. So the thing about item throw characters is that when you throw an item out, the game changes. So the game state changes. So an example would be, let's use Faust. Faust has meteors. When meteors comes, when he throws meteors, you know, after about like a second or two, fury is going to rain from the heavens, and you can't hit it back into space, and Faust is still there. So like it's just instantly from whatever position he does it, like you get put into like a WarioWare micro game, right? And that's what's really good about it. And in older games, especially in older games, you really couldn't do anything about any of this shit. This is why Teddy drove me nuts until they nerfed him some. Bike key is one of the best examples. Bike key, if he gets the bike key, this fucking motorcycle, Wario's motorcycle, fucking comes off screen, okay? Goes full screen. If it hits you, you go flying, sliding, he gets a combo. If you block it, he's plus. Then it comes back from behind because he made a U-turn because he forgot to go to Wawa, and then it does the same thing coming back. But then if I get the bike key, the bike comes out anyway and hits me anyway. That is nonsense, right? That is nonsense. Of course they nerfed it. It's not like that in the current version, but that's what it used to be like. So a lot of items you just couldn't do anything about the shit. You just couldn't do anything about it, and it's really hard to deal with. Very hard to deal with. In more recent games like Dragon Ball and Guilty Gear Strive, they usually, because I kind of think of Ginyu as an item throw, because you know you have the Ginyu Force. So they kind of let you do stuff about it, but generally, what they tend to let you do is they let you interact with the item directly and try to do stuff. So like, oh, you can hit him back. Oh, you can hit him back. But there's always going to be some where you're just like, oh, you're kind of screwed. And then on top of the item straight up, the characters themselves have good neutral, right? So they usually have really far. Think about like Faust Far Slash, Teddy 5B, right? How good their anti-airs are, how good their screen control is. And on top of that, similar to the puppet character, some of these usually they have an item where like, oh, it's a hitbox moving independently of the item throw character, right? So you have cases where you're not controlling it like puppet characters, but you have cases where the items are moving and they can just sit there, but there's something on the screen that you can't do anything about. And if you try to challenge them, they're sitting there, they're ready to like anti-air you or whatever, and then they look you and I, and they're like, oh, my neutral is nice. This shit is demonic. This shit is a demon archetype. They're demonic in a way more subtle way than puppet, because puppet characters are demonic, by the way. Puppet characters be breaking hella rules when they're good, but item throw characters be breaking hella rules too, just not in the same phases of the game. So we will tune up neutral, like amazing neutral, very good offense. Also, sometimes, not always, they have unique defense. Sometimes, not always. Defense is going to be like meh. Knockdown is very good. At number 2, we have Projectile Zoner. So we're including like all sorts of stuff here, like trap characters, setup characters, you know, like Dizzy, who put like the option behind you and then runs behind the beam. Like all these things I'm putting under Projectile Zoner. This is also a super goat. Even overall with them trying to make projectile zoning weaker, because I will say I feel like projectile zoning is not as good as it used to. I think overall in fighting games, it's a pretty safe pick. A lot of old games have really broken ass fireballs. I mean, the classic is literally like Ulsagot Kami, Tiger Shot. He recovers before everything. that she could do, and if you have the nerve to jump at him, he just DPs you, right? That's a simple example of it, but there's some more extreme examples. Of course, if you've watched Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Morgan with Soul Fist and Soul Fist spam, plus being able to take your meter and being super mobile. Sometimes they have the nerve to give these characters reversals. Another example is like Mew12 from BlazBlue. For a long time, an extremely long time, she had a guard point DP that you could not safe jump. Yeah, guard point DP that you could not safe jump, which I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And also they tend to try to do really unique things with the projectile zoners compared to like, let's say like the mid dispensers, right? So mid dispensers, an example of kind of a unique one is like Johnny. We can go back to Johnny. Johnny is amazing. The main like unique thing about him is that he levels up, and like his misfire is different depending on the level. You get to combo off everything, blah blah blah. Projectile zoners, they tend to do like really crazy shit. So like, yeah, again, Morgan, so you got the double fireball thing she had going on. You have Happy Chaos. So Happy Chaos has I mean, honestly, it's like aimbot, like his reticle tracks to you after a certain amount of time, and that thing is plus, and you can cancel it to this thing. You have Mew12, who has the Star Wars mines that track to you and like follow you, and she's fast, so she's like running around all these things. They tend to try really unique ideas with this archetype as well that tend to be very strong. And you're forcing the opponent to act too, because generally the strat is like you have to like try to approach these characters. So you're making your opponent make mistakes, taking risks to try to get in on you. And on top of that, because a lot of them are unique, generally people need to know specifically how to deal with what you're doing. Where like, let's say your Shoto or your mid dispenser, or I mean, if you want to go as far as like your fast grappler, don't get in. This is the strat, right? Mid dispenser, okay, we're gonna be playing mid range somewhat. Okay, I gotta stand here against this normal blah blah. Ryu, you know, we're playing mid range. He has the fireball to keep you away if you're slow. If you're fast, okay, we're playing mid range. Boom, we know these things. Where like HC, it's like, okay, HC for example, you need to know that the guard crush shot into concentration frame data. You need to know like, oh, if I burst him, can he steady aim me right away? If he bursts me, can he steady aim right away into guard crush shot? How do I deal with this pressure? Can he do this thing here? How do I deal with jump H? You have to know very specific things for each thing, which is why people always struggle against it. On top of it being very good. And then the last, number one of all time, greatest archetype of all time has to be Setplay characters. So by the way, these two are the best. So I think projectile zoning and like Setplay Vortex characters are the best, because every fucking new game does shit to try to make it weaker. That's how you know this shit is good. Every single new fucking game does something to make it not good. They all are trying to make it not good, and the shit is still good. That's the crazy thing. Take Dragon Ball, right? Dragon Ball, you have not only 30 frame variable wake up timing, but you can tech in the air, and you have frame 1 parry that beats highs and lows. And Gotenks, they had to nerf Gotenks so many times. They had to nerf level 3 so many times just to make it not good, and it's still good. You know what I'm saying? Or in Projectile's case, we're gonna use Dragon Ball again, right? Super Dash is in the goddamn game, right? Of course, there's like a beam assist and stuff for protection. Broly's top tier for years because fucking this thing is too good. It's 5S too good. A lot of games have like projectile invincible roll, or a lot of characters will have like a move that's projectile invo from this frame to that frame. The shit's still good. Sometimes in the projectile case, it keeps a lot of projectile characters down, to be fair. But the Setplay characters, there's always one that sneaks by. Another thing about Setplay is really good. The Setplay knockdown characters is really good. I recognize this really early, side story, but when I was playing Akia Vermilion and Cadenza, that's the first fighting game I played. Maybe like, I want to say like about 8-9 months to a year in of me playing her, I was like, yo, all I'm doing is I'm getting a hit, all my shit puts them in the corner, and I have a side swap combo. I mix them up by myself. If I hit them, and then I do this loop combo, build this meter, put this fucking plus 33 thing on them. If I hit them with a mix up again, then I get a shit ton of meter. They lose all that fucking meter, and I set it again. If they block my mix up, I'm plus 33. I air dash at them again. I mix them up again. If it hits, I go into the same thing. I was like, this is pretty stupid. This is pretty stupid. This is pretty stupid. So I realized kind of early that I'm like, man, it's a pretty good strategy. Like, you know, and there's so many examples of just stupid ass set play characters. There's like SF4 Akuma, Lychee for years, the Chie from Persona, Amada Ken kind of falls in here too. You know, remember many of these archetypes are combined on characters. So there's so many games where there's an example of this that's top tier or close. And on top of even that, the other amazing thing about this is it's usually uninteractable. If the defender can interact, the person who's attacking can find ways to greatly limit their options as well, which is such a good thing for tournaments as far as like stress. So for example, so imagine like, I mean, I even think about this about Strive Milia, even though I don't think Strive Milia is like super strong, right? Like in Strive Milia, when you get hit by 2k2d, the defender can't really do anything. They can't YRC you because you're going to block. So air dash faster than everybody. In this version, DP, if you DP and make her block, the disc stays. So she combos you anyway. If you gold burst, she has ways of doing the mix-up that safe to gold burst. So like she's just safe. Just safe no matter what. That's such a nice thing to have compared to like playing like a grappler, whether or not they're fast or slow. Of course, there's some games where like the throw situation is fucked up, but generally, like grapplers, mid dispensers, like you do your thing and you're like, am I gonna throw or not? And they can interact on that throw. They can mash, they can jump, they can backdash, they can reversal, there's a bunch of shit they can do, and yet you have to select against all those. How strong your character is in that situation is gonna be dependent on how they deal with that. But like in the clutch, you know, like. In the clutch, you fucking are trying to come back. You go for that command grab, they backdash kill you. Like, you know what I mean? Where in the clutch, you get that random knockdown, put the thing on them, mix them, you win the game, pop off. And yeah, that's it. I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like I forgot one. I forgot defense, but it's okay. I actually think defense characters probably an A tier. But besides that, I think I covered basically all of them. Like I said, I think characters are a combination of these things, but these are just my thoughts after playing for like a long ass time. So any questions?